Hey guys, welcome back. It's Thursday, and it's a beautiful day here in the old foothills of Monrovia. That's right. It's a very mild 68, 70 degrees, kind of chilly in the garage still. Enjoying a little bit of early morning pipe by Peterson, which was originally a Dunhill blend. Enjoying it in this pre-war K Woody. This is the one I got from subscriber, friend, and Lantoneer, Jerry Lewis, out there in Florida. And he sent this to me. He cleaned it up, restored it, and he sent it to me because he really felt this wasn't the style that suited him best. And I've always wanted one of these. I love this style. I love these Bulldogs, and highly underrated. Smokes great. It's a really smooth, well-balanced pre-war Bulldog pipe. I have another Bulldog. You've seen it. I've smoked it plenty of times on this channel, but it has a step in the stem. This one's a straight taper, no step. So, yeah, very sleek, very Art Deco. Anyways, Burning the Star. This is the one I got in San Pedro off of Marketplace. Hey, you remember it had that silver paint on it and all that jazz? Well, this thing is a performer. It burns really well, and it just has the right look. And that paint came off not too hard. It wasn't that hard to get rid of it, but seeing all this generous sloppy solder around the fuel spout is really kind of neat. And some people have asked why that is. Why did they get sloppy with the solder like that? Well, we have to remember, bright tin hides a lot of solder. So somebody that was maybe not as clever with the soldering, torch or whatever, could get a little sloppy, and you wouldn't see it because it blended in with the bright tin. So, but after years and years, it gets dark, and then the solder stands out. There's a contrast. So, yeah. But anyways, it's a great piece, and it has local history. That's right. So, it's been in California for a very long time, since the late 1890s. That's right. This one is a late 1890s Star tubular. Not to be confused with the Little Star. Now, the Little Star was smaller and was a 00 size globe, or, eventually it would wear a Dietz Junior globe, but by the 1920s. But early on, it had a number 00 style hot blast globe, first generation. And they came around about 1900 or so. But anyways, this thing is a great piece, and the Star Tubular, I think, came out in the early 1890s, and it was number 0, and it was just a variant of the square lift tubular. And they made the square lift tubular, I think, all the way till close to 1900. The Star was eventually going to replace the square lift in production, and then they just kind of, soon after 1900, a lot of these square tubed 1890s lanterns started to drop off out of the catalog. They continued until about 1905. Some of them, like the Crown, replaced the regular, and a few others. But the square tube lanterns that survived the turn of the century into the 1910s and 20s was definitely the Victor, the Dietz OK, the Acme Inspector. I'm trying to think. Is there another one? The Dietz Crystal. Dietz Crystal ran out up until 1915 or 16, but there's been reports of some being found manufactured as late as the early 1940s. But the catalog didn't offer them, but I guess you could call and order those at any time up until then, at least, if somebody wanted one bad enough. But square tube lanterns. The Hilo had a very brief tangle with square tubes. I have one. I should do another Hilo video. There's been a lot of new collectors posting on the group on Facebook, the Tubular Lantern Collectors group, and they've often mistaken the earliest versions of the Hilo to be square tube. Now, that's an easy mistake. That's an easy mistake because we think square tube is earlier, therefore that came first. Actually, it didn't. The very first Hilo was the number 0 Hilo. And subscriber and Facebook friend Kyle Pagonis, he has one, and it doesn't even say Dietz on it. It just says Hilo, number 0 Hilo, and New York, USA. So it's obvious that it's Dietz, but It was a round tube, had the Monarch frame. Okay, so it had the Dietz Monarch frame, like the early Dietz Monarch, without any stamping on it. And then it had the flat fount, like the very first Monarchs, well, early generation. And then it had cross-wired guards. So essentially, it's a Monarch without a lift crank. And then just had the little loop on the glow plate and the little double loop on the air tube to pinch lift type of deal. And then I think it was around 1912 or so that John Dietz wanted to put square tubes on the high-low because he felt that was more branding with Dietz. It was more identifiable Dietz because the 1890s was definitely an era that they really, really flourished with their square tube design. And they kind of became associated with that look. And they fought tooth and nail to keep that look from being copied by others. And let me tell you that they did. They did protect that patent for sure. But anyways, after John Dietz died, then the high-low went back to a round tube like it was when it started out. But yeah, by the 1940s and 50s, your only square tube lantern was really the Acme Inspector. The Acme Inspector and the Mill lantern was still a square tube lantern. Yeah, the Dietz Mill. That was continued to be made, I think, into the 1940s. They also offered that in a blizzard style. So they made a cold blast mill, and I think that eventually won out over the hot blast version. But, yeah, I mean, Dietz had a long run with square tubes, and they're really neat. And the funny thing is that we all sometimes associate them with earlier styles. Dietz square tube lanterns didn't come into effect until 1890. They were patented in 80. Well, certain aspects of the lanterns were, you know, patented in the mid to late 80s, but the square tube design really was a 1890 idea and concept that was really launched right around then. And they became known for it, and everybody tried to copy them because I mean, look, it's kind of a neat design, really, when you think about it. Isn't it? They just look neat. They just look really rugged. They look very rigid and strong and sturdy, and they just, I don't know. It has a very Victorian look to it. It really does. So the Dietz company, R.E. Dietz, was very protective of the square tube design, and they went after every company that tried to copy them. That's right. And I've mentioned that before in previous videos. Now, I have something I haven't shared yet. That's right. Recently picked this guy up, and I got a bit of a deal on it. It didn't come with a globe, but I had a globe on hand for it anyways. But this one's from the 1890s. It's about 1898 to be exact. And I'll tell you how I know about this. And I hope you pay attention, because this will help you in your searches, in your spelunking and the antique stores. And when you find something, you can get a better idea of how old it is and where it falls into place. This is a Dietz Victor. Not a stranger to the channel, not at all. I've had several of these. In fact, my very first square tube lantern was a Dietz Victor from about, well, the same period as this star. About 1900, 1899, 1900, right around there. But this one's 1898. And I'll tell you why this one's 98. Well, you see anything different between this and the star? Essentially, they look the same to the untrained eye. Now, let me tell you, there's some identifying differences. Take this, for instance. Take a look at this fount. Do you see a step? See how it kind of steps down? So the wall comes down, and it stops, and then curves out, and then steps down, and then goes to the skirt. Okay? Do you know where this idea came from? It's still a soldered bottom. Yeah, still soldered in bottom. But this step, well, I'll show you right here. Now, this was a slightly different design, but this is C.T. Ham. This is a number 0 clipper from about 1900. But look at that. Look at the profile. Now, this is a soldered seam where Dietz is underneath. But this is a soldered seam. This was C.T. Ham's design. And, you know, but it has the same profile. Essentially, it comes down and it curves out and drops, and there's a step, and then there's the skirt, and then the lip. and then it's just a single piece. This is the skirt, and the bottom is one piece that's soldered to the side of the lantern, up to the fountain. Anyways, same profile as that Dietz. So they kind of copied that design a little bit, or Ham did. I don't know. You choose. But what came first? But anyway, so this was about 1899 to 1900 that they used this fountain. Into the very, very early 1900s, 1901, 1902. It didn't change, but they did stop the soldered bottom. The soldered bottom went away to the crimped bottom. That's right. The crimped bottom replaced the soldered bottom. Kind of wish they didn't, because the soldered bottom seems to be a better deal, because crimped bottoms eventually will leak, as we all seem to come to know, because they'll weep a little bit. The crimp is good and solid and it's tight, but over time you get some oxidation, maybe a little rust in there, and it kind of separates, and then the oil will find its way out eventually. It's not going to be a chronic problem, but you can seal it definitely, and I'll tell you later how you can address that. But here's the 1898. Now, I put a globe in there. It's 1898, Dietz 98 globe. Pretty cool. I know, I've had this one for a while. I think I got this globe from Lantern Joe. But this is 98. How do you know it's 98? Why is it not 97? Well, to my understanding, these came out in 98. These reinforcements in the sides, okay? These, on the top and on the sides of the air tubes, they got reinforcements. That's right. They were stamped with a crease for rigidity. Earlier examples didn't have that. So let's see. Here's an earlier Dietz. Here's an OK. See, it's flat, smooth. This is from the early 1890s. See, it's bottom stamped. So early to mid 1890s, but it's smooth. So pre-1898 Dietz didn't have this crease right there. So if you see this stamped in crease, then you know that's 98, or maybe a little later. But this fount doesn't have the same style as the other one. See, no step. So it comes down, and then the skirt, and then the lip, and then soldered in bottom. Yeah. So this one's right around 98. And this was after the fire. So after they consumed SG&L in Syracuse, after their main fire in New York, then they already had holdings with SG&L, so they started their productions in Syracuse and took over and dissolved SG&L as an entity, as a company. Some people might, that's not fair, I really like SG&L more than Dietz. Cool, I like SG&L too. One of my favorite lanterns is an SG&L Royal 1B, but in all fairness, they were very similar. They had companion models. Dietz had a Royal, SG&L had a Royal. Dietz had a Victor, SG&L had a Victor. They all shared the same names, essentially. Some variance between the models and the companies, but not much. But anyway, so after the big fire in 97, then they started production at the SG&L plant in Syracuse. And so that's why they marked Dietz 98, because in that era, most stamping companies that burned to the ground were done. There wasn't a lot that came back from that kind of setback, because if you lose your entire company, you're kind of done. If you don't have a way to manufacture lanterns and sell lanterns, you're going to be out of pocket to rebuild a factory and then start from scratch. And that's not something a lot of companies of that era were prepared to do. Since SG&L and Dietz were closely related, they had members on the board, they had holdings with SG&L, so they says, hey, we're going to start manufacturing at your factory. And then they had a meeting and they said, okay, we will dissolve SG&L, just sell the rest, just manufacture and sell the rest of the parts in our factory, and then take over, and then that's what they did. So clear into 1900, it wasn't unusual to see a lantern with SG&L stamped parts, because Dietz was still making lanterns with that. They were just using the stock left over. Exactly. So don't be surprised thinking, oh, it's from 1898 and no later, because they were still using the stock that they had. Anyhow, this is 1898, and it's in really good shape. It's a Victor. Now here's a Victor that I have, and I've had it for a while now. It's one of my favorite Victors. This is from 1890. Oh, 5 or 6. Single wire guard. Now, it came with this globe, which is another 98 globe. And it's a beautiful, beautiful globe. It's got the nice amethyst tint to it from the manganese in it, and it's spent time out in the sun or near UV light, and it changed colors a little bit, but it's a beautiful piece. And this one has the same fount style, soldered in bottom, same fount profile as the 98. But see, smooth side tubes, no reinforcements. That's right. And this one has the side lift, just like the other one. But since it has a single wire guard, it's got the little notch in the guard wire, so it locks it in place and snaps back in place. It's a great design, it really is. This is my personally my favorite Victor I own, and it was the only Victor I've had for a while until I got this one. So the 98 is a beautiful piece. This one has a great original patina, no rust. You can see there's some tin surviving on the crown there on the smoke bell, and also on the bottom you see some surviving tin. You know, it's still a little shiny through some of that patina and everything. Yeah. And this one has a clip. So since it doesn't have a circular globe wire, this one has a little clip for the side lift. So you want to unlock that, and then you can lift up on the tab and pull out your globe. Just like that. That's what you want to do, because if this lever is locked, the globe plate is locked in place, and it's going to be more difficult, and you'll potentially do damage if you try to remove the globe without unlatching that. Anyways, there we go. Now we got the wing, well, not the wing lock, but the hinged cone. And that was very much standard with Dietz Victors and other Dietz lanterns of the 1890s. My Crystal has one. My regular has one. My side lift has one. Every Dietz 1890s lantern that I have has a locking cone. Not a locking, but the hinged cone with the little paperclip hinge. Yeah, pretty much. That was the standard from about the early to mid 1890s through onward until the wing lock cone came out. But one lantern that doesn't have a hinged cone would be the Dietz OK. Now there's a big reason for that, because, well, look. You tilt it back and you got a hinge. Oh goodness. Don't want to let the globe fall out. But you have a hinge back there. So where's, you know, the hinge for the globe plate, it's back there. So where would you put, it wouldn't be very feasible to have a hinged cone, so it's just a pressure fit. So it just comes out like that. And I actually like that better because it makes it easier for cleaning and you know, whatever. The hinge cones are convenient so they don't get lost, but they are in the way when you're trying to clean something up or do maintenance on it. It's just flopping around. And you can remove them, but it's kind of hard to get them back on the way they were originally. So this one's got a brass cone and a brass burner, which is all original. All original. That's right. It's all original. Now this cone, I've been looking at it, and it's a little misshapen. So I don't think it's going to burn as well as I'd like it to. So I gotta remove it and you know, do a little maintenance on it and get it back perfectly round. And a good ball peen hammer, the ball end will do that. And what I do is I put the end of the hammer in there to kind of follow the cone, the shape of the cone, and then I take my rubber mallet and just tap it around, and then we'll reshape the brass to be a better shape, and then you get a much better burn. Fact is, this Dietz Star here, its cone was kind of misshapen and wasn't burning very well originally when I bought it. So I did that, and I reshaped the cone, and it burns much nicer now. So if you get a kind of a funny shaped burn when you first light up a lantern that you purchase, and it has a funny shaped flame, then you might do one of two things. You might check the burner, and then you also check the cone. The shape of the cone should be a nice even arch. So if it's got a dent in it, or if it's, you know, misshapen, then it's gonna affect the burn. It really is. So I did put just a little bit of fuel in this thing, but let me see if I can shape that cone a little bit better. and we can light this. Yeah, we got time, right? Yeah. You got somewhere to be? Anyways, let's see here. Where's my ball peen? Oh, what's the mallet? My ball peen, there it is. You know, you never know what kind of cool tools you're going to find at the thrift store. I found this at the thrift store for like $5. And this is an old ball peen hammer. It really is. But see, that's kind of the right shape and size for a tubular cone. It is. It is. Indeed it is. So, yeah, let's just set this here just for a second. Yeah. I mean, it would make sense to take that cone off, but, you know, I can do this with it on. And then, let's see, go to this side. See, more distortion in the globe, the cone, not the globe. Let's see here. This side has a little bit more distortion, so there, get that out of the way. Let's see. Did that do it? I'm running out of room on this counter here. It's not too bad. I might actually do something. Let's see. There's a dent there. Let me see if I can. Sorry. That might actually be better. There. Okay, I know it's a little odd, but I think I just fixed it. So we'll put this damp wick back in there. Well, maybe we'll add a little bit of fuel so we can actually kind of burn it better, I think. That's weird. That's weird. I don't like that. This wick has got a stray little thing going on here. There. Okay. Okay. Cool. Maybe we'll trim the corners off just in case, right? Can't hurt to trim a little bit of the corner off there. All right. And now let's add a little bit of fuel. And the inside of the fountain is actually really clean. It's quite amazing. The condition of this 1898 Dietz Victor. I know. When you sit there and think that a lantern is 126, 27 years old, and it still works, you know, I mean, it's a little bit incredible. I mean, it is to me that we can sit here and play with an antique and use it, right? I mean, isn't that something else a little bit? I think so. I think it's really fun to be able to use an antique piece as it was intended. You know, every collector's a little different. Some collectors are very apprehensive about using an antique because it's not made anymore. And if something happens to it, then it's gone forever. Well, I can understand that, but if you're, you know, let's see here. Let me get a match. Let another Dietz lantern assist this one here. Let's see. Come on. There we go. But I mean, let's see. Borrow the flame. There we go. Okay. Well, that's better. I think that's better. Yeah. That's a nice flame. Not too bad, actually. Yeah, that came out good. So before it was kind of uneven, and you know, it wasn't happy. It wasn't happy. So I did fuss with this lantern a little bit right when I got it, and it's quite happy now. It's burning much nicer, and I think it's a keeper, but we'll see. I do like it, but I'm also running out of room. Why did you buy it then, Rob? Come on. Well, I mean, look at it. It's in really nice original shape. And my whole direction of my collection is kind of going in that way, where I like things that are untouched, unspoiled. Survivors. Mm-hmm. Indeed. So when you find something that's never been touched, not restored, or cleaned, and it's not rusty, because I mean, I did clean a little bit on that star. I had to remove the paint, but I left the patina, but I did a very gentle WD-40 scrub on it just to get a little bit of the rust underneath the paint off, and you know, I think it came out great. It looks untouched. It has the look that I like. This thing came out of Utah. And a friend of mine was on a buying trip, and he showed me some cool lanterns that he got out of an estate of an older couple that were collectors in the 1960s and 50s and 60s and 70s. And this was hanging up in a basement in Utah in a very old house. And so the story was really interesting, and I liked the story. And a couple of the other Victors that he found were in much greater shape. They had a lot of surviving tin. I'm like, you know what? Make your money off of those. But this one I'm kind of interested in. So we struck up a deal, and I thought I paid a fair price. Yeah. And it's nice. It's a great example. It's really cool. I have noticed that when I slosh the fuel a little bit, it will leak from underneath the pits here. So I think there is definitely some cancer or some rot or rust holes underneath the air tube. So what I'll do, I'm not going to do any extensive surgery, no, but I will empty the fountain, because the inside the bottom is very clean. It's got tin in there, so that's kind of interesting how it's rusted out from the top of the fountain underneath the tube. Because there's solder, and there's solder here all around the tube, and you'd think that any water would not be able to get in there, but if it finds its way into the manifold, it can kind of creep underneath there. But yeah. And then you see there's some it's weeping on that side, and I didn't really slosh it much. So yeah, there's a bit of a leak. So we will address that, and I will get my seal all out. Well, first I'll clean it with acetone and seal all and all that stuff, and I'll roll it around and try and get everywhere so it doesn't leak at all. So that'll be the challenge. That'll be the challenge. But aside from that, it is burning, and it's holding oil for the most part. You have two siblings. Two siblings here. 1898, 1899. Dietz Star and Victor. What a nice little companion here. What a great couple. What a nice pair. Right? Rob, you're crazy. I know, so. You're here. You're just as guilty as I am. But, you know, it's funny. I've had these conversations with other friends of mine that I've known for years and years and years. And they just like, what is it with these old lamps? Why are you into these old lamps? I'm like, why not? I mean, they're not just like cute little red painted things you get at Walmart or surplus store. And there's nothing wrong with those either. If you like those, that's great. If they burn nice for you and you enjoy them, all the power to you. But, I mean, we all have a start. We all have a place that we start, right? But for me, when it comes to burning something that's 120, 130 or more years old, and you're looking at that flame and you're looking at the past, you're looking at life as it was in those years, and that flame has not changed. In fact, the wick in this one is just as old as the lantern is, I'm sure. It's a pretty old wick. But, you know, I don't fantasize about going back in time or wish that I lived in that era. But sometimes it's a fun place to visit, and to understand the era and know the history, it kind of makes the future a little bit different. Anyway, so you know what to expect with the future. You know what I'm saying? So if you know your history, you're not going to repeat your history. You're going to make the future a little less flawed by repeat performances of your mistakes, right? Anyways, that's the key, is to remember one's history, or even the country's history, or wherever you live. Learn the local history, and you'll find out it's pretty interesting. I mean, Los Angeles and the San Gabriel Valley has got such rich, crazy history, good and bad, of course, but it makes it interesting, and you know how to go forward a little bit. I apply a lot of the history I've learned about to my life, and changes. It's all about that, right? Mm-hmm. Don't want to get too philosophical here on you, but antique lanterns, they've always been kind of a thing with me since I was a very young kid, about 6, 7 years old. And that's when I first experienced them. And I was like, I love that warm, soft light. And you know what? They kind of look neat. This is all functional. The air tubes, everything, it all has a purpose to create a flame that doesn't flicker or waver much. Now, these are kind of bouncing around because they're hot blast, but it's amazing to control a flame to make it a certain shape and provide a light that you could use and see by. Mm-hmm. So it's a neat invention. These were cutting-edge technology of their era. Portable light. That's right. So what's not to like, right? Anyways, cool stuff, guys. Cool stuff. I love it. It's fun. So thought I'd share this recent addition with you guys. Now, I've said it before, there's things that I will most likely be offering in the near future. So I already sold the CT ham. None of you guys bought it. Well, actually, one of my subscribers did. He's also a friend on Facebook, and that would be John. So shout out to John. Thanks again for buying that. I hope that you got it safely and that you're enjoying it right now, perhaps. But anyways, thanks again, guys, for the subscriptions. Thanks for following the channel. Thanks for your input. Thanks for your comments. I love hearing from you guys. I enjoy interacting. So please, don't be shy. Comment. Let's... Unknown caller, 646. Potential scam. Well, we will just let that sit there. Anyways, I got to get going, and I got things to do. But thanks again for tuning in, and we'll be seeing you guys here soon, next week. All right, bye-bye.